Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to open this Polk County Board of Commissioners meeting. It is Tuesday, November 29th. Extra agendas are on the back table. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Looking for comments not on this agenda. Hearing none, look for approval of minutes from November 22nd.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And for the record, Commissioner Gordon is excused this week. Next up is Polk County Clerk update. Val Unger.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
So I was last here in March. So this is a 9-month update, not a yearly update. So I just kind of updated some of the figures that I had from March. Recording has been down. So I just gave the figures through November of a few past years, including where we're at right now. So you can see those numbers are significantly lower for this year. Any questions about that? I don't have any explanation other than the market has slowed.
Interest rates have risen.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Not as much refinancing as we've seen and things like that. So as far as marriage licenses, we've issued 368 so far. I always kind of say we average about 365 a year. And so we're a little above that. And we were at 401 last year, which was pretty much a record. So we're kind of on track to be about the same with that number. And then with BOPTA, we have not received any appeals yet for this year, but the deadline is not until January 3rd. We've had a few inquiries. When people call, we always refer them first to the assessor's office and ask them to talk to an appraiser. And then we tell them where the forms are located on our website.
In your tenure, has there ever been a year that there weren't at least
If there
one?
were zero, no, we've never, I don't recall any that were, we've had,
This could be the one.
we've had some years where they were all stipulated, I believe. So there weren't any real hearings, but yeah.
Being the BOPTA chair, if I just interrupt, could you knock on wood since you made that statement?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Well, even one is
Well, pretty
not
good.
bad. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty remarkable. I'm confident of that. And again, having been a BOPTA chair, been through training and actually been through an era of seeing a number of claims, you know, it really is quite phenomenal to have so little. And I'm guessing by comparison to some other counties, we do quite well in that regard.
It's because they're so busy complaining about elections. And that's our next topic.
I really wasn't, I didn't think I was opening that door, but
Good segue. So I just ran a report this morning and currently we broke 63,000. So we're at 63,141 voters. And in my March report, we were at 62. So we've risen since then. That number will be adjusted some as we go through the undeliverables. We're a county that does not do those during the election. We have too many other things to do. Some counties process those during this time. We wait until after we certify and then we go to work on updating the return ballots. If there's an address to update it to, we'll do that. If it just says they moved away or something, then we'll inactivate them. So our number will change. Probably, I think in 2020, I noticed that we had passed up Benton County in our voter registration. And currently they stand at 61,255. So we just keep broadening that gap. So, and then
do you know what the population comparisons are?
I don't.
They're about 8,000 more than that.
That's what I thought. That's an interesting phenomenon.
And James and I have discussed it and he said, yeah, we just don't have the growth or something. I don't know what he kind of thought he knew why he didn't have as much. Even when we went to in 2016 with the motor voter numbers and, you know, it just seemed like we were getting more of those numbers than they were at that time even, so.
Refresh my memory about campus population. They count in this, yes?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The-
much larger campus
Yeah.
university than we have.
I mean, if you're a college student, you can claim a residence address of your home address if you want, and then just have your ballot mailed to college. So if you're claiming a residence address other than the college, then it wouldn't count in his numbers. It would count in the county where they're claiming their residence address. And then, of course, in January of 2016, before the motor voter law went into effect, we were at 43,618. So big jump since then. And then I did a breakdown of parties from now and then in March and then in 2016. I know a chart would have been nice, but I'm not really a chart girl. Don't know how to do those very well. So I tried to space them so you could compare them in the columns, but those numbers kind of speak for themselves, that the non-affiliated voters continue to grow and the Republicans as well. Democrats are staying kind of stagnant. And of course, there's a few others in there that I didn't include, the minor parties and the others, the birthday parties and those fun ones. Any questions on the numbers of registered voters? All right. So a few updates on the last report. I had things that were new, and so I just changed that to updates. So redistricting was completed earlier this year, and you may have heard that I received a phone call on the day before the election of someone who lived on Orchard Heights Place, and they had received a ballot and they believed that their I think it was their state representative was incorrect on their ballot. And so I quickly took a look at Orchard Heights Place and looked at the map and determined that they were correct, that they had received the wrong representative district. And so at that point in time, since it was the day before the election, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot we could do at that point. And so upon further investigation, I kind of looked into what had happened. And I worked very closely with Eric McAvoy with GIS to achieve the redistricting, which is not a small undertaking. And our major changes were in the north part of the county and on the west side of the county, precinct 166, Falls City area. And we had done some major adjustments to those. And then he had some other little tweaks here and there that he had brought to me. And so I looked back on the notes that he had given me for Orchard Heights Place. And the way that our address, we call it our address library, and it's all the addresses in Polk County, and they're broken up into address ranges. And then they're assigned a precinct number. They're based upon assessors' tax codes, and that's how we know what to put on the ballot for those voters. And then they're assigned within those precincts a representative in a Senate district. And so for many addresses, it has a beginning point and an ending point. Sometimes there are divisions between precincts or representative districts or whatnot that divides the certain address range for even and odd, because it breaks down the middle and one side is one district and the other side is the other district. But oftentimes it's just a beginning and an end point, and then everything within that is contained in that same precinct, rep district, all that tax code. So when he gave me the addresses for Orchard Heights Place, he listed them out. I believe there were 9. And I looked at my address range, and the beginning number was the same and the ending number was the same. And I did not run a report of everything in between. I just said, oh, okay, it's these numbers. And so I changed them all into the new representative district and I believe Senate district. And so looking at that a little clearly after it was brought to my attention that there was a mistake, there were 20 addresses total in that range. And it did not break up between even odd. It was a very strange division because he even kind of showed me the road kind of goes like this. So it kind of broke it up. But anyway, in my haste to get redistricting done, I did not look at the individual addresses and just change the whole range over. So once the election is certified, that's on my list to go through and divvy up the individual addresses. There were, I believe, a total of 12 addresses that were changed that shouldn't have been. So that was what happened there. As far as the postmarks, May was the first election that we had where postmarks counted after the election. And so after the May election, we received over 1,200 postmarks that we were able to count. In this election, we received 616, including 17 that we haven't counted yet, but we will. Because they were illegible or non-existent, and so they were under a challenge. We were trying to figure out why there were so many more in May, especially when May was a much lower turnout. But on election day, I don't know if you've noticed on Tuesdays, we don't get a lot of mail. We call it No Mail Tuesday in the election world. Usually on election day, we don't get any ballots through the mail. And on this particular November 8th election, we received 3 full mail trays of ballots, which is very unusual. So I don't know if the post office was just very, efficient in trying to get us those ballots, so we didn't have to worry about receiving them after election. I don't know. I didn't really ask any questions. We processed them, but then subsequently, we just didn't receive that many after election day. So, and then as far as the ones that we did not accept because they were postmarked after election day or they were received after the 7th day, we received some on the 8th day, on through the 2 weeks after the election that had valid postmarks. They were postmarked by November 8th, but they weren't able to be counted because they weren't received in that 7-day period. So that was odd to me. But anyway, we received 94 that we couldn't accept compared to 111 in May. So another fun fact. We did eliminate the secrecy envelopes and we received a few calls, very few calls, handful of calls. People, most of them wanting to know where it was. They thought they just got omitted, and we explained to them we had eliminated them and talked about the secrecy weave that we had put inside the envelope, and also that when we process them, we put them face down on the table and take them all out. Anyway, that seemed to go pretty well. In May, I was able to put an insert in with the ballots and let them kind of informing them of this new law. And when I asked to put the insert in for November, my vendor said, we can't get the paper. So we weren't able to provide that extra insert, telling them about postmarks and telling them about the secrecy envelope being eliminated. But I thought we'd get more calls, but we really didn't. The Grand Rond 24-hour box, we received 174 ballots in there. It seems like it, we just keep getting more and more. So that was good. It was vandalized before the election. I had gone out, in the boxes that we have outside here, in that box, we put a big bag inside there so that when the ballots are taken out, they're just not in an open container. And so we had went out to put that bag in the box and noticed that somebody had graffitied the outside of the box. So it was like on a Saturday or something. And so we went over to the fire station and asked them if they had anything that we could use to remove the graffiti. And so they did provide us with some turpentine, or I don't even know what it was, and a rag. And so we were able to clean it off. And then I did notify the local authorities there to kind of keep an eye on it and let me know if they noticed anything else. So we didn't have any other incidents after that. I'm just glad we noticed it. And I did attach one of the reports that I gave you, just kind of has a breakdown of all the different drop sites. So it's a little bit hard to read because it kind of layers them up on page 2. But basically, as far as all the ballots received through the mail, we received a little over 15,000. And then if you look on page 2, we received almost 26,000 through the drop sites. So the drop sites are very, very well utilized. Of course, our number one is the courthouse right out here, and Ross in West Salem. So, but you can kind of take a look at those. I was kind of surprised at Independent City Hall at 1842. That seemed to be a little bit more than what they normally get too, but anyway. And some of these have zeros because they're ones that we had used at one time, but it doesn't allow us to take them out because they do have ballots attributed to them from past elections. And then I had also talked about some modernization money that we would be receiving. We have received it. We received a grant for $15,000. I haven't really spent a lot of time figuring out how we're going to spend that. I think I have until July to do that. But I can, definitely get more drop boxes or cameras. For this election, I had to bring in another, I brought in another team on election day to help with the flow, the influx. We had heard that we might get a lot on election day. So I brought in another team and there wasn't enough room in the back to put them. So we put them back close to the ballot counting room. And one particular observer who was watching the on-site cameras was not happy about not being able to see that board working. And so a possibility would be to maybe put another camera in that portion of the office to capture that in case we utilize, because we have used that space back there before for that. So. And then I also included a report for you just to show the turnout by party. So, and our overall turnout was 66% is the last column of how many, which compares to about, I think we had 68% 4 years ago for the midterm. So it was pretty on track with that, with a lot more voters. But you can see the Republicans had the highest with 83.2, and then Democrats with 77.3, non-affiliateds 42.8, and then the other minor parties and whatnot 66.4. So it was a good turnout election. And I did run a report that I didn't include for you, but we received 30%, over 30%, 30.5% of the ballots on election day and the day before. We received 23% of the ballots returned on election day. So.
You know if that's high or low by comparison to other
No,
general elections?
I didn't run any other reports, but we typically do seem to get a lot the last 2 days. So sometimes I know in May we got hit really hard the last 2 days too. So it just seems to be, I would say, maybe the more current trend of what voters want to do. So, which is fine. So did you have any other questions about these or questions of things I didn't cover? I always have to say, we're a small staffed office. There's 3 of us. And when you put on this big event, it takes a lot of planning. And then there's like a week or more of just really crunch time. And it would be impossible for us to do it alone. And everywhere I turn, I have support from the general services helping us to put up things in the hallway and things outside and taking them down to the IS department, with even asking us, not even having to go to them, what can we do for you? How can we help you? Of course, you guys, Morgan's always by our side. It seems like more often now than ever. And Greg is always up there helping with the ballots. Matt comes up. Lyle kept checking on us. I mean, the sheriff's office provided deputies on election night. And then one even came back and escorted the ladies to their cars at 9 o'clock. The other offices on our floor brought us donuts and cards of encouragement, and payroll did that also. And it was just overwhelming, the support that we do receive from our own. Not a lot of support outside the county, but inside the county was very much felt. So
Let
Thank
those few deter you. Majority appreciate what you do. So
thank you.
it's that 5% that drive us all crazy. So you did a great job. And
Thank
it's
you.
watching all that stuff moving in that office and you keep it all straight and going.
Yeah, it's nice when you can keep track of those 42,000 ballots and know that they're all accounted for. So
Thank you.
So how many volunteers do you acknowledge in this current past election?
So we don't really have volunteers. We typically pay everybody, but I have one main drop box person who puts them all out, picks them all up, and then I have to have somebody at each one at 8 o'clock to pick up. So there were probably, I don't know, 6 total that I use for the drop boxes. And then we started with 3 teams of 2 workers. The 2 workers worked together, 2 different parties. And then I brought in a 4th team on election day. And then we have 1 main extra signature checker that we use. And then I utilize 2 others, 1 just on election day and 1 like the week before for a couple days. So not a whole lot, but
I'm asking these questions for the record. How much do you pay these people?
I pay them just right at minimum wage. Usually I try to keep it like maybe 50 cents above, but yeah.
And how much challenge have you had filling those spots?
People are usually pretty willing when I ask. It's just a matter of getting.
You use a network?
I kind of use that. Yeah, I kind of call on the same people. It's just hard because sometimes when I go to make the calls, oh, somebody had a vacation plan, because it's only once or twice a year. And so it's hard to, or they can come for 2 of the days, but not the whole time, or the day before somebody's sick, So it's a challenge to just get, but it always works out. And then of course I have to look at their parties. So I can't just bring in anybody, and I have to keep that all straight. I have to keep a chart and who's working with who. So it's a little bit of a juggling act, but
Because that's outlined by state law
mhm.
and monitored through the Secretary of State's office.
Correct. And Brent, I didn't mention Brent's staff too. He has, since 2020, when we did have some trouble getting, because a lot of our workers typically are of the older population, aging, whatever you call that. And so he was able to provide, yeah, okay. They were just, didn't want to be out in the COVID, environment. They were keeping kind of close to home. So at that time, Brent brought in, I don't know how many 3 or 4, yeah. And since then, if I get in a bind, or if we're having a recount where we use like 16 people and I have trouble, all I have to do is just say, can you send me a body or 2? And they're there. And so that's awesome. And they're good. And they're usually younger. So, no, it was
really appreciate everybody that's engaged in your processes, and it makes me proud that, and I hear it from citizens. I think we all hear it from citizens, even though there's a few bad apples, perhaps, that make your life very challenging. I think generally speaking, citizens in this county absolutely know who you are, know the integrity of your office. They may not fully understand all the moving parts and how complex that is. And that's why, for the record, I want to make certain that people understand how much work this is for a small office of 3 to pull this off time after time, and how much integrity there is in what you do and your team, and how that spreads to all of the folks who step up to help. I think that that's a rewarding element that we all need to embrace. We just need to keep embracing it, keep honoring that. We'll deal with the challenges of folks that don't trust. But we have to do that through education. And the more people we have that are involved in the integrity of your office, the easier that is. But I just want to make certain that we always give you an opportunity for you to to make the claim about how few people really do pull this off. It is remarkable. And I'm confident if you were comparing, and I'm not asking you to do that, but if you were comparing per capita to other counties, you do it with a remarkably small budget and remarkably small number of people. I'm confident that's accurate. So,
It is.
yeah. So I'm very proud, and
Because I have control issues.
that's okay. It's okay. If it went the other way, then we'd say, well, yeah. I think that's great. It's a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I see how much it gnaws at you to have a little spot on the map that didn't work perfectly. And I think, again, for the record, I want to be able to show people how much just one little anomaly eats at you and how hard you work to fix that and get it right. And nobody said elections are all perfect. So, but I'm so honored to work with you and see your integrity in making certain that everything works as perfectly as it can.
Thank you, Craig.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
Lyle addressed one of the people who were trying to make a bigger issue out of the 12 addresses. And, like I said, there wasn't a whole lot we could do the day before the election. And, Lyle was very straightforward about it and said, we try to be perfect, but we're not always. And we'll deal with it and we'll fix it, but just
And it
not
was-
time to do it now.
We were all thankful that the votes weren't within 12.
Mhm.
Had it been, or within 6, we'd have been scrambling, but and nothing came that close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, what he said, we all feel that's universal for us. You had 476 challenged, I believe, ballots.
We had more than that, but at that time, that's how many we had left. And today's the deadline for that. And so people have until 5 o'clock to bring in an updated signature or to sign their card that we sent them if their ballot wasn't signed. There were very few ballots that weren't signed, but more than normal signatures that didn't match. And so, so that's the deadline today. Tomorrow, I hope to do our final run. I think we're going to have about 200 ballots to add to our count. And then hopefully certify either tomorrow. There's just a lot going on tomorrow with Tom's service, and I have a dentist appointment and things like that. But so probably tomorrow or Thursday at the latest, we'll certify. We have until Monday is the deadline. So then we'll be wrapped up.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Okay, you done with me?
Yep.
All right. Well,
Thank you
thank
so
you
much,
for your
Dr.
time.
Thank you.
Next up would be the Cloud Corner Road closure. Town Manager.
Morning, Commissioner.
Morning.
Morning.
So last week, you had a presentation from ODOT. Basically letting you know that they'd withdrawn their request for a detour. But we're still asking for a closure of Cloud Corner Road in 2 locations. One on the east would be a 5-month closure. One on the west would be 2-month closure. And so what I put together here is a board memo so that a formal decision can be made on that. And then assuming that goes through fine, then we'll do an official order of that on the Wednesday consent calendar.
I don't see that we have any other options, do we?
No, and I've always anticipated, I don't think this is something that was unanticipated by us. Even the west one, we said it's going to make sense when they tie that in. We'll just close it and send them north and south and do that. I think we want to probably, continue to do all we can to minimize the length of those closures, whenever possible. So, and then they've defined a time period or a duration of those closures, but they can't really nail down time periods. So we've said, okay, sometime between this day and this day, but we've asked them or stipulated that they notify us within 30 days before those closures occur. That's when they get further along in that construction schedule. So we will have an accurate date at that time, but we can't predict that at this point in time. There's just too many variables between now and then to predict an exact date.
Well, and as I'm confident you noted in my questions to him last week about that issue.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to hold their feet to the fire on the timeframe. But I'm cynical about whether or not they'll actually do that. I've not seen projects of this size actually demonstrate that. Maybe they can do it, but what are the consequences if they don't? I mean, again, we've stipulated things. We're gonna say yes to these closures with that understanding of a time frame, an amount of time. And once it starts, I mean, once they close the road, the clock runs.
Right.
When they run beyond that, what value is our order? And I'm asking that for the citizens. We agree to we agree to go along with closing the road because they're going to close the road. Whether we like it or we don't. I mean, I suppose we can obstruct it, but what's the consequence of them not meeting the timeline and impacting people's lives beyond the time frame that they've set?
I can't answer that here. I don't know.
Right, and I'm not trying to put you on a
Yeah.
spot or anybody else on a spot. The fact of the matter is, so well, we can go through this motion, but that there's no promise to the public that that's going to be honored and that it's going to be met. And the impacts, I mean, they could go 7 months. It's entirely possible. So, that's where my concerns are. And, again, I'm just trying to put the caveat in there. It's like, we could say yes to this, but I don't know that there's anything we could do about it. If they have whatever the circumstances are, it's always supply chain or it's labor issues. It's always something. So what?
Well, I understand your concerns and I share some of that, but also look at the difference from when they came 3 months ago to when they came this time and the changes they made in their plan for us to address our concerns. But at the same time, as you know, in business and stuff, and especially working outdoors, there's a lot of things that can happen. So I think they're very sincere in making those timeframes stay. But then there's always things that happen outside their controls. And right now, supply chain is one of the biggest. They have plenty of time to get all this stuff over once they get their bids back and select a contractor. So I'm hoping things go smooth, just like they do right now. Biggest thing is after 15 years, we have a chance to actually see dirt move this spring, which is pretty exciting, and have all of this done within 18 months. And I'm hoping that they can make it. I mean, I know working with the staff, but that's not the contractor. But I'm excited just to see it move forward. And I think everybody would be glad to get this thing completed and get it behind us. So
I'm hopeful too. That doesn't compel me to sign this. So, I mean, that's for the record. I'm going to agree to it. I'm going to move to accept it. But I just want to make certain I put on the record that, so what? We're not making promises to the people that are impacted in these closures because we can't.
we can't. That's correct.
So that's my motion.
All right. I moved to sign it also. So thank you very much.
Bet.
Next up, non-listed items. All right. With that, we're adjourned.